Stranger Things became the internet's emotional support show. The series you rewatch when everything else is too much. The same show that made me check under my bed somehow became the thing that tucks me in at night. How? How did this happen? And to understand that, we need to go back. Two brothers from North Carolina, Matt and Ross Duffer, 32 years old when they created this. They grew up breathing Spielberg's wonder and Stephen King's darkness like it was oxygen, John Carpenter's tension, all those summer blockbusters you weren't supposed to watch yet but did anyway. They had a vision, a show that felt like flipping through VHS tapes at 2 a.m. Kid adventure meets supernatural horror, E.T. holding hands with the Thing. Netflix said yes in 2016. And not just yes, they gave them creative freedom. The Duffers have said Netflix was like, "You're rebels, go break the rules." No one had really tried this format before. Long-form 80s throwback with kids as leads and genuine horror mixed with heart. But here's what nobody expected, the execution. Episode 1 was shot in 2 different schools combined into one set because they couldn't afford a real middle school. That Millennium Falcon you see? Hidden under a blanket for almost the whole show because it was too expensive to keep visible. The Duffers screened roughly 1,000 audition tapes for the kids. One bad child performance, and the whole thing falls apart. The Demogorgon looked too silly in early notes. They rebuilt it. And somehow, we got one of the most iconic monsters in modern television. But fixing the monster was the easy part. The Duffers had a much bigger problem to solve. They were trying to make a show about the power of friendship in an era of TV that was obsessed with being dark, gritty, and cynical. The Duffers understood something Hollywood forgot. Sincerity sells. You can have all the monster design in the world, perfect 80s aesthetic, flawless plot, but if you're embarrassed by your own concept, if you're winking at the camera saying, "We know this is silly," the audience feels it. They check out. Stranger Things never apologizes for what it is. Joyce communicating through Christmas lights could have been campy. Instead, it's devastating, because the show treats it with complete sincerity. The show never hides behind irony. It treats friendship, grief, bravery, and nostalgia with sincerity, something the Duffers said Hollywood stopped doing. That sincerity is why even ridiculous things feel powerful. That confidence is what makes it work. But confidence alone doesn't carry 4 seasons. There's something deeper happening here. Most sci-fi horror builds around the mystery. What is the monster? Where did it come from? The supernatural stuff is the point. Stranger Things flips that entirely. I came for the mystery in season 1. Will Byers vanishing, the Demogorgon, the Upside Down, classic hook. I stayed for the characters from season 2 onward. That's when the show figured out what it wanted to be. The Upside Down, the Mind Flayer, Vecna, all backdrop, the stage where the real story happens. Think about season 1. Yes, there's a Demogorgon hunting kids. Yes, there's a secret government lab. But what actually drives the story? Joyce refuses to believe Will is dead. She's communicating through Christmas lights because mother's instinct won't let her accept it. Everyone thinks she's breaking down. She doesn't care. Hopper's guilt over losing his daughter makes him obsessed with finding Will. Second chance at redemption. This man will punch through every government conspiracy to get it. Mike protects Eleven because she represents something pure in a world that hurt her. Nancy's survivor's guilt after Barb dies shapes everything she does for the rest of the series. The monsters never create fear out of nothing. They simply drag the truth to the surface. And the dialogue. These kids don't talk like screenwriters trying to sound clever. They stumble. They interrupt. Dustin rambles about science nobody asked for. Steve repeats himself when panicked. It's awkward, it's messy, it's real. But here's what really got me. Vecna wasn't invented in season 4. His clues were scattered across 3 seasons. The Mind Flayer's obsession with Eleven had roots in season 1. Will's connection to the Upside Down kept building. When the payoff comes, it lands because you've been carrying that weight without realizing it. And that kind of storytelling needs a world that feels real enough to believe. Hawkins, Indiana feels like a real place. It existed before the cameras turned on, and it'll keep existing after. You can picture the exact layout. Melvald's General Store, the Palace Arcade, the community pool. You know this town, you've been there, and that's intentional. Every location tells you something about the people who inhabit it. The Byers house feels like it's barely holding together, just like Joyce's mental state. Every creaking floorboard says this family is one crisis away from collapse. But there's love radiating from those walls. So much love it hurts. The Wheeler basement is safety incarnate, where the party plans and argues and bonds. That basement represents childhood, the last place you can just be kids before reality forces you to grow up. Real talk? The party in that basement reminds me of my own friend group growing up. That same energy of, this is our space, and the Upside Down, a mirror, Hawkins rotting, every character's emotional basement made literal. The Duffers pulled heavily from Silent Hill, not 80s movies but a survival horror video game. That foggy air, floating particles, decayed versions of real locations. That gives it nightmare logic instead of movie logic, visual storytelling. And it works because the show understands place affects everything, including how we experience the story on a sensory level. Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein's synth score is one of the most iconic soundtracks in modern television. And here's what's wild. I wasn't alive in the 80s. None of my generation was. But this show created 80s nostalgia for an era we never lived through. Psychologists call this anemoia, longing for a time you never experienced. Kids are going to grow up with 80s nostalgia because of this show. That's cultural impact you can't manufacture. The synth soundtrack anchors the show's identity. That opening theme, it's Pavlov conditioning. 4 notes, and you're in. The score became so iconic, it literally revived retro synth music in mainstream pop culture. But it's the visual contrast that makes everything work. Warm golden interiors, safe spaces, home. Then cold blue-green nightmare fuel, flickering lights, shadows that move wrong. The upside down's red veins crawling up walls like infection. The show looks like a childhood memory with something dark at the edges, like finding something wrong in old photographs. Every frame has intention. That Millennium Falcon. The Duffers have said these details matter. Someone sees that and they're instantly transported. Emotional anchors. But here's the harsh truth. You can have the best synth soundtrack in history. You can nail the 80s vibe perfectly. But it's just empty set dressing if there isn't a heartbeat underneath it. Let me be very clear about something. Stranger Things succeeds or fails based entirely on whether you care about these people. Perfect upside-down design, flawless mystery, pristine 80s aesthetic. None of it matters if you don't give a damn about some nerds riding bikes through Indiana. And this is where the show becomes something special, because I do care. About Max and Will and Hopper and Joyce, about their friendships and pain, and the way they look at each other when they think nobody's watching. Let's talk about why. 11's arc is about learning what it means to be a person when you were raised as a weapon. She starts as a lab experiment, a number tattooed on her wrist. She doesn't understand why Mike would give her his blanket without expecting something in return. Hopper doesn't try to fix her. He just shows up, day after day, teaching her that love isn't about being useful, that family isn't something you earn. The man has 2 emotional settings, dead inside, and I will fight for this child. No in between. By season 2, he's adopted 11 through sheer force of will and dad energy. His letter in season 3 destroys you, a man trying to tell a kid she's worth being loved, that her existence matters beyond what she can do. Early Will is the emotional anchor of season 1. His disappearance is childhood innocence lost, made literal. Every character's fear revolves around one question. Can we get him back before he's changed forever? Later seasons prove them right. Will became the kid who suffers quietly, while everyone else moves forward. When Mike and 11 are together, when Lucas and Max are together, when Dustin's off with Steve, Will's just there, trying to hold on to childhood while everyone grows up without him. Jonathan teaching Will to stay true to himself with The Clash playing.
Nobody normal ever accomplished anything meaningful in this world. You got it?
That's love as permission to exist. The show sees him even when other characters don't. Anytime Will looks at Mike, there's a pause. The camera holds on his face. That silence says everything. But not everyone in Hawkins suffers quietly. Dustin Henderson is hope personified. But he's not naive. He knows the world is scary and unfair. He just chooses joy anyway. He's the emotional glue. When Mike and Lucas fight, Dustin mediates. When Steve feels useless, Dustin reminds him he's a hero. When Erica's terrified, Dustin makes her laugh. His relationship with Steve is comfort food in TV form. The older brother Dustin never had. The younger brother Steve didn't know he needed. Here's something most people don't know. Steve and Dustin's friendship only exists because the actors clicked so well, the writers changed the show to keep them together. The Duffers have said they followed accidental dynamics that shaped huge chunks of later seasons. Steve and Dustin? That became the heart of the show by accident.
The shampoo and the conditioner, and when your hair's damp, now you're gonna go in there.
Yeah.
You look like $1 million.
Yeah.
This is my favorite dynamic in the entire show. Only time I've seen a jock-nerd friendship feel this earned. And it's earned because Steve went from generic 80s jock to full-time protector of traumatized children, and somehow became the mom friend in the process. Steve doesn't talk down to the kids, he takes them seriously. He listens to Dustin's science rambling. He trusts their instincts. He protects them without making them feel weak. He's become emotionally safe, the person people run to instead of away from. Steve learned that someone has to protect these kids, and it might as well be him. Steve carrying a nail-covered bat while protecting kids he barely knows? He was always this person underneath. By season 3, Steve is working minimum wage and his best friend is a 14-year-old, and he's still more heroic than when he was popular. But if we're talking about earned character arcs, we need to talk about Max. Max Mayfield has the most grounded emotional arc in the show. She's dealing with grief, with guilt over Billy's death, with an abusive home life nobody talks about explicitly, but you feel in every scene, with feeling utterly alone even when people stand next to her. Max's arc never offers a magical fix, just someone refusing to let her stand alone in the dark. Lucas stays. He stands next to her and refuses to leave. That's it. No grand gesture, no perfect speech. Which brings me to something important about how this show handles its threats. Every monster in Stranger Things is basically a metaphor. The Demogorgon is raw fear. The Mind Flayer is conformity and control. Vecna, he's guilt, grief, and trauma with a heartbeat. They're nightmares pulled into physical form, and that's what makes Max's confrontation with Vecna so powerful. Dear Billy is Stranger Things at its absolute best. Max goes to Billy's grave. She reads a letter to her dead stepbrother, someone she had the most complicated relationship with, someone she sometimes hated, someone whose death she feels responsible for. You watch her guilt spill out. You watch her confess that part of her wanted him to die. Then Vecna strikes. He weaponizes that guilt. Then Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill arrives. The song holds massive meaning. It's about someone who wants to swap places with the person they love. Kate Bush said a man and woman can't fully understand each other, but if they swap places, they'd find common ground. That's Max and Lucas, who aren't on the same page yet. Max escapes through memory, through remembering Lucas, through remembering her friends, through remembering why she wants to keep living. The graveyard shifts around her, red bleeding through gray. The show pulls from Nightmare on Elm Street here. You're trapped in the dream and there's no waking up. Vecna dangles her in the air like a puppet with cut strings. Her friends place headphones over her ears in the real world, and she starts running. The music crashes in like a wave, still gives me goosebumps. Any slow-motion run set to a song like this becomes myth. It's the oldest story we know. One person against impossible odds. Except Max isn't alone. She's carrying every moment of love she's ever experienced, every hand that reached for hers, every voice that said her name like it mattered. That scene is why the show works. References to 80s classics, terrifying horror imagery, perfect soundtrack deployment, and Lucas is there at the end, holding her hand, refusing to let go. Now, I'm not saying the show is perfect. I'm a fan, but I'm not blind. The pacing drags sometimes, and yeah, the kids grew up way faster than the timeline allowed. But oddly enough, even the messy parts contribute to that home video feeling. The ensemble gets overcrowded. Lucas and Erica deserve more screen time. The gaps between seasons killed momentum. Later seasons juggle too many storylines at once. But here's the thing. You only notice these flaws because you care so much about getting it right. You notice Max getting less screen time because you miss her. You're frustrated by Will's arc because you want more for him. The craft makes you invested enough that imperfection hurts. And honestly, the later seasons being perfectly forgettable makes them perfect for comfort rewatches. You can put them on and just exist with them. They're there, comforting, familiar, like visiting old friends. So why did this show, this specific show, become what it became? I've been watching since season 1 dropped, and every season I get hyped for the next one. That excitement never goes away because these feel like people I know. The core group reminds you of being younger and going out on bikes with your own group. Just having people who get you. That feeling of, this is our space and we're in this together. This show makes you care about kids riding bikes in small-town Indiana. It makes you remember what it felt like to have friends who'd fight monsters for you, who'd walk into hell if it meant bringing you home, who'd stand next to you when your own mind is trying to kill you. Maybe that's why I keep returning to Hawkins. Not for the monsters, not for the mysteries, for the reminder that even in the darkest moments, someone is looking for you. Someone is fighting for you. Someone refuses to let go. Thanks for watching. Drop a like, tell me who your favorite character is, and subscribe for more videos each week.